Well, we looked at an intervention called Philosophy for Children. This was with primary school children. And the idea was that teachers would encourage children to think philosophically and to have discussions and debate that they generated. And we found that just after a year of this intervention, that the group that had Philosophy for Children had done better in several indicators of attainment, like literacy, maths, and cognitive reasoning. All of the teachers in the school were usually trained. There was a kind of away day, 2 days of training and then ongoing support. So they were trained to introduce terminology to children that they could use in reasoning and in constructing an argument and in assessing evidence. And then in each session of philosophy, the teacher would introduce some stimulus material and the students themselves would vote for what kind of philosophical question they'd like to do. So they were taught the difference between factual questions that they could just check out somewhere else and things that were more open to philosophical reasoning. They picked one of these and they did it in a circle where they led the thing by themselves. They passed, if you like, responsibility for the discussion between each other, between themselves. And there was quiet reflection time, and at the end they had to think about what they'd learnt. So we had two large groups of schools. One group did the philosophy in the first year, and the second group waited until we'd finished the trial, and now they're doing the philosophy themselves now. And the first group, the group that took philosophy in the first year, the pupils who were about age 9 and 10 performed much better, or considerably better, on things like literacy and maths in their Key Stage 2, as far as we were able to tell. But they also did slightly better on a cognitive abilities test, which we gave them both before and then after the intervention. And one of the interesting things was that in terms of, say, maths and literacy, the gains were greater, noticeably greater, for the children who were most disadvantaged, such as those who were on free school meals. As far as we could tell, the schools, generally the schools took this intervention very well. That everyone seemed to enjoy it. There was enthusiasm from the staff in the whole school training days. The children we saw generally enjoyed it, and by and large they all participated to the best of their ability. The teachers felt that some children had gained in confidence and willingness to speak out and to construct an argument. So in terms of these outcomes, people were reasonably happy. We did observe occasionally, perhaps it was just a habit from primary schools, that the teachers were slightly reluctant to relinquish control. It's meant to be a pupil-led discussion, and it is hard sometimes for the teachers just to kind of, if things are going well, just to leave them to get on with it. I mean, given that, as far as we can tell, the intervention is more successful for the children from disadvantaged backgrounds, but the kind of pupils who would be eligible for the current pupil premium funding for schools, which is given to schools in order to help improve the attainment of some of the lowest attaining or most disadvantaged pupils, then an intervention like this, and it's obviously not the only one, and it's not necessarily even the strongest, but an intervention like this can reduce the pupil premium gap between those who get the premium and those who don't. And the intervention, we estimate, costs probably less than, say, £30 per pupil, in which case it might be a feasible use of that pupil premium funding for schools. Well, there'll be several. I mean, two most obvious ones. One is that, like all evaluations that are funded by the EF and other rigorous or robust evaluations of interventions, this will feed into the pupil premium toolkit, which can be used by school leaders, head teachers and teachers themselves, where it provides a kind of a la carte menu of things that they might want to do for their pupils, particularly for those who are the most disadvantaged or the lowest attaining. And on that menu, if you like, it gives them a number of interventions. It suggests how secure the evidence is for those interventions, what the likely impact might be on the students of their age, and of course how much it might cost. So it will feed into that sort of work-in-progress database of evidence. I think even more interesting for us is that we've now been funded to follow up the schools who formed the control group in the first year who didn't undertake philosophy for children, but have now been funded to do it for the coming year, or a year or two. And so we're going to follow these ones up. But what we're concerned with this time primarily is non-cognitive outcomes. What I mean by that is we want to look at, see if there's any impact or any evidence of an impact on things like children's aspiration, their happiness and well-being, the kind of things also that the government and the Cabinet Office are interested in, like grit, resilience, character formation. And that should be ready by about 2017. We'll be able to say, is there any evidence of differential growth in those kind of outcomes, hard as they are to measure. The gains in both in literacy and maths and even more so in the cognitive abilities test are relatively small. There are no negative outcomes as far as we can see from this intervention. So in a sense it's all gain, but the gains are not huge. And we as independent evaluators shouldn't have like a side in this. Our job is to find out whether the thing works or not and then to publicise it. But I have to say that having seen this in operation, it does strike me that if there is no negative outcome and all the indicators are good, that getting children to think in this way and to take more control of their own arguments in lessons and so on strikes me as a very, very good thing for primary schools to do.